Hey there! My name is Shoof, and welcome to the first video in my Zero to Hero series. My goal with this series is to offer up any and all knowledge that I have gained over the years to help you improve as a player in Final Fantasy XIV. Now some of you may be thinking to yourself, what do you mean improve at the game, Shoof? I play just fine and never wipe any of the content that I do. Hey, that's great, and if you're happy with where you're at, then by all means, keep enjoying yourself. But even if that is the case, these videos still may show you some things that you may not have known before. But the reason I'm making this video, and the ones that will follow, is that Final Fantasy XIV does a fairly poor job of teaching players how to play their jobs good. And what I mean by that is that it can be very difficult or even outright discouraging for players to try and bridge that initial gap between doing things like your main scenario quests, daily roulettes, and dungeons, which are generally considered to be fairly easy content, into attempting the extreme, savage, or ultimate encounters where the game gets far more punishing. I'd like for you to think back on your journey through Final Fantasy XIV's main scenario really fast and think, did I ever really fail and have to try really hard to get through any of the content? I'd be willing to bet most of you would tell me, no, of course not. And that's not a bad thing. Quite the opposite, actually. The developers shouldn't have to put huge roadblocks in front of players who are just trying to enjoy the story and get to max level. But a large side effect of this is that it leaves players very underprepared for difficult content if they don't seek outside resources to assist them in learning what is going to be expected of them. Because if you're only met with success, victory fanfare screens on your way to the end game, why would any player think they have anything else to learn or improve upon when everything they've been doing up to that point has worked for them? So I'm here to help any player looking to take that next step. So in this first video, we're going to start where any good guide or tutorial should. And that's at the beginning, or in this case, the foundation on which you're going to build your skill set for success. And the foundation of any great player is being able to control your character accurately and execute any action required of you at a moment's notice or while handling any sort of mechanic. Yes, that's right. Today we're going to be tackling the riveting topic of keybinds and why you should bind all of your abilities to a hotkey. What I'm saying here is that if you've been clicking your spells and abilities so far, you're either building or have already built bad playstyle habits that will stunt your growth as a player. And in that moment, I heard 1,000 screams from across the community saying, "No, Shoof, you don't understand. I've been clicking for years, and I've cleared all the content in the game." Listen, I hear you, friend. And full disclosure, I used to be a clicker too. But playing the game well and doing it consistently at a high level is infinitely easier when you're able to look at everything going on around you and absorb all of the information instead of looking at your hotbars or hovering over buttons with your cursor. Not to mention hitting buttons in quick succession for things like double weaving or saving yourself or a party member with an unexpected split-second heal or cooldown. These things are much faster and more reliable with keybinds rather than having to react in the moment and mouse over to the button and clicking it. And all of this is doubly important in Final Fantasy XIV encounters where bosses are designed around visual tells and cues that show you what they're about to do in a bunch of different ways. With things like cast bars, buffs, debuffs, or simply just raising their arm, sword, or tail to warn you they're about to do something. But if you're too busy looking at your hotbars instead of at the boss or somewhere else looking for these visual cues, you're losing valuable time and you'll be slower to react to what's being asked of you, and will open you up to making many more mistakes in the long run than if you had just keybinded that spell or ability you were looking for in the first place. And if you don't believe me, I can show you the downside of clicking in one simple clip. And you may have seen it before, but I was actually there for the incident.
Let's go, Are we three? I'll be three.
Oh no, fuck! No, fucking Christ, are you kidding me?
Hit LB3!
I'm trying, fucking Christ, god damn it!
What?
And tragedies like that can be avoided if you keybind properly. And also be sure to lock your hotbars. Before I get to the actual keybind suggestions, there are some basic guidelines I would suggest you set for yourself in order to make the initial learning and remembering of your keybinds easier. Number 1. Try to bind similar abilities, like Surecast or Arm's Length, that all jobs have access to, on the same keybind for every job, that it's always in the same place. This will make it much easier to remember. This will also apply to other abilities that are used for similar things, such as 2-minute raid buffs, potions, mitigation abilities like Feint, Addle, or Reprisal, and Sprint. Number 2. The more often you use an ability, the more important that a comfortable keybind is for that ability. For example, if you're hitting an ability 100 times during a fight, and another ability only 2 times during a fight, then the one you're hitting 100 times should be bound to something easy to hit and not something like Control-Alt-9. We're trying to improve ourselves and make hitting abilities easier, not get carpal tunnel. Number 3. If you ever find yourself in a situation where it is difficult for you to hit a keybind while trying to do something else, such as dodging while trying to hit an important cooldown, or executing a burst window like Hypercharge on Machinist or Gnashing Fang combo on Gunbreaker, all while resolving a mechanic, then trying to find a keybind that may be a little easier to hit in that situation may be in order. Number 4. Don't get frustrated, and keep at it until hitting all of your keybinds becomes second nature. It may not come easy to you right away, and mistakes will happen, especially if you're just now trying to accomplish this. You may have to unlearn a lot of old habits and build new muscle memory, but a small tip that helped me when I was trying to find my own set of keybinds would be to try and add only a couple new ones in at a time, and only add more once the ones you've added previously become second nature. And keep at it until the goal of having all of your abilities bound is achieved. With all that said, I am not going to tell you exactly what keys you should bind any of your abilities to, because no two players use the same set of keybinds for everything. That's because something that's easy for one player to remember and execute may not feel the same to you. But what I can do is give you some common hotkey suggestions that most players find are easy and useful when looking to keybind your abilities. I'm going to give you suggestions operating under the assumption that you do not have an MMO mouse with a full 1 to 12 button arrangement on the side. I do happen to use one myself, and I do swear by it, but I understand that not everyone has one or is interested in using one. So I will give you alternatives, and I would suggest you try them out and see what works for you. This is, as I said before, a very subjective subject, so find keys for you that feel good. A good place to start is with any easily reachable key around your movement keys, such as Q, E, R, T, F, G, B, C, X, and Z, just to name a few. Just adding those right there to your arsenal is 10 extra keys you no longer need to click and are also right near where you're already using keys to move. Now for things you hit less often, you can add a modifier such as Shift or Control to double or triple the amount of keybinds you have available to you. So just taking those keys right there, with modifiers, that alone takes you to 30 options for keybinds. And that's not counting the other keys you're probably already using, such as 1 through 5, or your F1 through F4 keys. And seeing as no job currently in Final Fantasy XIV asks you to hit anything over a standard 3 hotbars full of abilities, then there are more than enough options out there to find a set of keybinds for all of your abilities that are comfortable for you to use. I want to wrap this up by saying that this video, and the ones to follow, are suggestions and advice coming from over 10 years of MMORPG experience that is aimed towards those that wish to improve and not at all to tell anyone they're playing the game incorrectly. I do hope that this video helped you in some way, and remember that the sky is the limit when it comes to keybinds, and there are tons of options other than the ones I've suggested in this video. So get out there and experiment with different key setups to find your perfect one. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.